Hey, good morning, everybody. David McLeod here, coming to you from Belmont, California, and just feeling really good. I mean, the temperature is a little bit cooler. It's a little bit, I'm noticing a little bit of a chill in the air, and it feels really, really nice. I'm just enjoying that. And, today, Tommy and I are going to be talking about something that's, I think, really touching both of our hearts right now, and that's that whole concept of work versus living, working life. How do we get the balance between these two things? And so, Tommy, welcome, brother. Good to see you here this morning. How are you doing today?
Hey, David, I'm doing great. Thanks for the warm welcome, or the chilly welcome, however it comes. I won't even get into it. But yeah, today we're going to talk about work-life balance, some people call it. I tend to call it life-work balance, just for my brain to kind of put what's important to me first. But whatever it is, that's what we're talking about today. And so what to do, where to jump in? Let's jump in with the first thing that pops in is like, okay, I love my job. My job is exactly what I'm meant to do, and I am in it. I love what I do. You found it. Good for you. Really good for you. Part of my life is that. Part of my life is when I'm doing stuff like this, when I'm talking to the camera, when I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking to David. This is what I love to do. But some of us still have to make a living, and that's what we're talking about here. So if you're in that place where you found what you do and you love doing it, I talked to a friend last week, David, from high school, and I asked him what he's doing these days. And he goes, you know what? I got tired of working for people. I started my own business. I'm a handyman. And now he's loving it. He goes, I love what I do. Every day is a pleasure when I wake up. And he's just helping people and installing new stuff in their houses and stuff like that. And I said, good for you, man. So yeah. he found what he loves to do.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is when we kind of have these two worlds that we live in, this world of work and this world of life.
You know what I found interesting as you were talking, Tommy, is I hear you say, we got to make a living. And isn't it interesting that we use that phrase to kind of, it becomes like what's the word I want to say? A euphemism for working. You know, it's like we've kind of subtly hypnotized ourselves into thinking that working is living. And, maybe for some people that really is true. Maybe there's some kind of work you can do that actually feels like no work at all, and it is pure life for a lot of people. And I really, really bless and honor those people who can get that. I mean, wasn't it the Buddha who said, find some work you love, and then you'll never work another day in your life? And I think that's a beautiful statement. And what you talked about, Tommy, is doing the kind of stuff we do here on these webinars and the kind of coaching that we're doing together, and that really lights my light bulb and really floats my boat and gets me moving in the morning. Whereas getting up to make a living, go get that money because someone else is paying me, so far right now at any rate, I'm not totally fulfilled in that area of my life. I was when I first started doing that work, but that's kind of shifted now. And now I'm noticing my focus is more along the lines of this personal growth work, about helping people to become more amazing, more magnificent, as big as they can possibly be. So there's a huge difference in the kind of energy that I put out. And, when I'm doing this kind of work, I can go from like 7 in the morning till 11 at night and feel totally fulfilled all day long. But when I go to the office to make a living, man, I'm in and out of there as soon as I can.
That's exactly the case, right? So the idea here on the whole topic, the title of the topic is balance. To how to maintain that balance until you find your perfect thing, where that you're working and your livelihood are the same thing and you're loving it. Until you get to that point, and I always send out energy that everyone gets there. But until then, we need to create some balance. And balance, in this sense, is always in our mind, right? It's not balance out there. It's how we're seeing things and the perspective. So all we're doing here is, as we always do, is bringing a little different perspective maybe on being more aware that I have this life that I live and things that excite me and inspire me, and I have this work that I do, and maybe there's some overlap and maybe there's not. But as Beata and I talked about last week, is how do we thrive as long as we have to do this work that maybe isn't so motivating, maybe isn't so inspiring, but we have to live in this human race and we have to make money to do it. And as long as we're having to do that, how do we thrive in that box, and how do we bring balance into our life? So that's where we're going, Tony, right?
Yeah, and the word balance is a word that we use a lot. I mean, I would guess that at least 50% or more of the topics that we've done, that word balance has come up in pretty much all of them. And so it's an important topic, and I'm glad you brought it up again, and Tommy, because that really is what we're talking about. Finding that fulcrum, that place that gives, you know, both sides of our world, the inside and the outside, the left side and the right side and the left, whatever. You get the idea. It finds that balance point and helps us to make sure that we're not swinging too far one way or the other in our pendulum.
All right, so let's talk about some ways to bring some perspective, or let's talk about maybe how we're out of balance sometimes, right? Because maybe those are some triggers and indicators too that we can see. And it was, I think, Loverboy, and the song "Everybody's Working for the Weekend."
Yeah, everybody's working for the weekend. Yep.
Right. and even there's a bar called what? TGIF.
Yeah.
Well, thank God it's Friday. Like, we have to thank God for a day showing up in the week, and but these things show imbalance. These things that are kind of jokes or in our face show the degree of imbalance, because if we're working for the weekend, right, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get work done. We're trying to get that behind us so we can relax, so we can have a little bit of life on a weekend. And now George Jetson is popping into my head, because that guy had it figured out. What did he get it down to? A 3-day work week or something like that? And so this whole concept of working for the weekend, or thank God it's Friday. I heard a statistic once, David, I'm not sure if it's true anymore because this was a while back, that a majority of heart attacks happen at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday.
Yeah.
There's an inordinate hump of heart attacks. What does that imply? That everyone's freaking stressed out about going to work, and Mondays are miserable.
Yeah.
Manic Mondays and all this stuff. So let's point to where the imbalance is, you know, and see, okay, all right, maybe I'm in it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I have a little bit of imbalance and I want to do something to change that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've certainly had some of that in my life. And I remember, you know, there have been jobs that I've had in my time. I've worked with startup companies, for example, and there always seems to be, well, I shouldn't say always, in my experience, in the places that I have worked, the energy seems to be, we got to get this done, 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 because if we don't, we're going to fail. And statistically speaking, most startups do fail. Most startups have a very difficult time getting, you know, over that hump that gets them into a successful place. So what happens is people who are working for those startups, people who are offering their services and getting paid for it, find themselves initially maybe working 10 hours a day, let's say. And then pressure starts building and more stuff needs to get done. So before you know it, you're working 11 hours, maybe 12 hours, maybe 13 hours. And I can say that in my experience, all of the people I was working with kind of fell into that thing, you know, because it's just a little bit more pressure each week. It's not like it's all dumped onto you all at the same time. It's kind of like the analogy of if you want to cook frog's legs, you know, you put the frog into cold water and turn up the heat, the frog probably won't come out of the water. But you toss a frog into boiling water and bang, he's out of there in no time. It's an interesting analogy, and I think that's kind of what happens to us when we get into those high pressure situations. They didn't start out high pressure when we joined, but they kind of slowly built up the pressure, and we just kind of slowly said, yeah, okay, I guess I can work an extra half hour. And that's what I'm talking about. Getting out of balance doesn't happen all at once. It happens in a very gradual way, and we may not even realize it until we pause and just kind of reflect a little bit. So thank you for bringing that up. It's a really important piece.
So here I am. I'm a frog, right? And I'm looking ahead at this path of way I want to go in life, and on this path, and I start hopping one step at a time. Well, there's a little bit of a crosswind, and every time I hop, I'm getting a little blown off course, a little blown off course, a little blown off course. Yeah. So while we're doing the frog metaphor, I figured I'd.
That's great. I like it.
And pretty soon,
that is actually what happens, isn't it? That's the kind of thing we're talking about.
And you don't even know you're off path. You don't even know you're out of balance. You know, there's more. I'm stressed. I'm losing my hair. My family is, you know, kind of angry at me all the time, or I'm, you know, I don't have many friends. I you know, sit around on the weekend and I try to recuperate by watching some sports and light stuff. Okay, balanced or imbalanced? And we don't know how we get there. And again, we're not here to, you know, to point fingers or point blame at the system or the corporate. That's nothing to that. It's just that we're not taught how to maintain balance and how to see it. So great analogy, David. Yeah, me too. In my career, there are times when, and as I got more and more, you know, mature in interviewing for jobs, one of the questions I would subtly kind of drag out of them is, so how, you know, do you guys burn the midnight oil around here? Are you used to, you know, going home after dark? How's your family relationship going? And I want to know. And if they think, oh, he's asking these questions, he's not a fit here because he's too lazy, then good. I'm out of here, because I don't want that kind of a work environment.
Yeah.
Somebody said to me once, they were getting really doing this, just in this path, they were really caught up in the work, and you feel important, right? You feel like, I'm putting in all my energy for the company, and we're gotta hurrah, hurrah, come on team, go, go, go. And yeah, I'm doing 12 to 14 hours a day, but so that's what I'm doing. And then you're burning out and you're getting stressed, and, you know, and all that stuff's happening. And I said, look, depending on the work situation you're in, I said, if you're in a corporation and you're in a paid job, if you're hourly, you're getting paid for what you're doing. But if you're in a salaried job, they're kind of paying you for 40 to 45 hours a week. It used to be 40, and I'm not sure if anybody ever rewrote the rules, but 40-hour work week, right? 40-hour work week. And that's what they're paying you for. And sometimes we need to realize that too. And then you're like, oh yeah, but if I don't work more than 40 hours, or if I you know, leave on time, then the boss is going to see me and I'm going to get fired, and all that stuff happens. Well, yeah, take that into consideration too. But perspective, we need to realize how we get knocked off course, and it happens in different ways.
Yeah. And it's not really the company that is to be responsible. I have the responsibility of deciding what's right for me. I have the responsibility of saying, okay, I have now gone beyond what is a reasonable boundary. And I think as an individual employee in a company, I also have a responsibility to the other employees not to allow myself to be pushed too far, because then they're going to see me doing it and they're going to get pressured and so on. So there's this whole dynamic that starts to take place. And so, you know, it's difficult to put a hand up and say, sorry, that's as far as I go today. I'm done. I'm going home. Sometimes it's hard to do that. But you know what I found is when I have done that, when I have set the boundary and I've been really clear, usually there isn't all that much blowback. And if I do this on a regular basis, then it makes it a lot easier when the real pressure hits and say, hey, look, we got this huge deadline looming. Can you come in and work some extra time? Now I can do it from a place of balance and not from a place of, oh, it's just the de facto standard. So yeah, that's really what we're talking about here, finding that balance. And I could love my job, I could hate my job, but I can still have balance. And I'm doing the job as a way of supporting myself, as a way of supporting my family, as a way of making sure that all of our needs are met, and somehow fulfilling me in some way. That's really what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and nicely said. You can still work 14-hour days and still have balance. So there's an element of just becoming aware of the situation you're in. That's all we're doing, is just bringing awareness. Whether you're working overtime and it's just because, you know, pure pressure because everyone else is doing it, or is it because you're excited and you're motivated and you need to be, you know, helping the company along? Good, whatever. But how does that feel balance-wise? So how does this feel? And that's a matter of the waking up. If everybody's working for the weekend is playing in your head from Monday through Thursday, and on Friday afternoon you're out the door at 4 o'clock or 4:30 and run into TGIFs, check the balance. and see why you're having those behaviors, why you're feeling the stresses, and feel the stress. Is Monday morning miserable? Is hitting that alarm clock, man, snooze, shut the heck up. I don't want to get up yet. You can wake up next week in the same job, in the same situation, with a different perspective. So let's talk maybe about how we can get some of that balance back.
Right. I mean, and that's all we're ever talking about is perspective. I don't think we've ever said this is the right way to do it and this is the wrong way. We're just showing, some things that people can become aware of. And that's really what we're talking about here. So the question that I would ask myself is, all right, if I'm going to stay in this job, am I feeling that there's enough time in my life for me to spend with things that are really important to me? Is there enough time in my life to spend with my significant other, with my children if I have them, or maybe with grandchildren? Is there enough time for me to just kind of relax and maybe go do some meditation? Is there enough time for me to go and work out at my favorite workout place? Is there enough time for me to get out in nature and just feel the trees and the cool breeze and the sun and maybe the rain, whatever? Is there time for me to do that? That's really what we're talking about here. Of course, if that's not important to you, then you're not going to be looking at those things. You're going to be looking at other things. Maybe what you prefer to do is go and play bridge, with some friends on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. Whatever. Do you have the time to do it, to go and do it and feel like you're present when you're doing it? Not like you're being pulled away from something else that is supposedly more important. That's really what we're talking about here. Finding that balance and finding that place where I am important to some degree. And it's not just everything else I'm doing that is important.
So you're right on. That's exactly it, right? It's a matter of finding out what's important. And sometimes we need to, like you said, pause and step back and become aware of what's important. And that could be as simple as writing a list of things. So I'll give you an example of what I did some years back. I keep a paper day timer still. And
where'd you go? Don't see you.
I went to get my paper day timer. And I still do this today, every day. So I used to go in the office in the morning and look at what I had to do yesterday and what I have today and what I didn't do yesterday. And I wrote down all these tasks. And then I'd prioritize them. Okay, this one's first, this one I gotta do second, this one I gotta do third, this one I gotta do fourth, this one fifth. Maybe I'll get to 6, 7, and 8. Maybe I won't today. So setting down what I want to do in a day and prioritizing it. Now that day timer was at work, and it used to be just work stuff. Well, then somewhere along the way, I got taught or learned that what about me? What about my family time? What about my errands and bills I have to pay and tasks I need to do, stuff like that? That's got to happen in a day too. So then I started making up more of a to-do list and prioritizing it and sectioning it. So then I had the me section, and then I had the family section, or friends or connections, relationships. I had the got to pay the bills, got to water the lawn, that kind of stuff. And then I had the work tasks. That's when what became important to me started flipping. That's where the balance started coming back in, because I was still doing pretty much the same stuff in a day, but I started prioritizing it differently.
Yeah. Tommy, I remember we did an episode quite a while ago about the to-do list.
Yeah.
I can't remember the title of that right off the top of my head, but I do remember we went through a lot of talk about that and how to go through that process of prioritizing, because it's not always easy, to decide what's important and what isn't. We may put a false value on something. So part of what I think we did was we talked about the impact of doing it and of not doing it, not only on the people around us, but also on ourselves. And we talked about there was some other piece or some other aspect that I can't remember right off the top of my head. It's just kind of coming back to me, and as it comes back, I'll remember. I'll mention it. But I do recall that we talked about this, and it's a very important thing. We talk about list writing all the time. list writing is a fantastic tool because it gets the stuff out of your head, which is all kind of jumbled up in a mess, and it puts it down in a more or less an orderly fashion that you can look at on a piece of paper. And once you do that, you basically stop the chatter in your mind and help yourself to focus more on what's really going on. That's very, very important. So, you know, then you can start prioritizing things as to what's really important, what has the greatest impact, what's the cost if I don't do it, and so on and so on and so on.
So in this Daytimer page I picked, there was actually something last week about writing and how it gets out of your head and through your arm and onto paper, and there all that junk goes. So really powerful in that. And I think the episode was something that had to do with ToDo List. The idea was, ta-da, like I'm, you know, my to-do list turned into something fun and exciting and beneficial. And it really helps bring balance. And that's what we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. And this balance has to do with priorities, right? So where are my priorities in life? And the whole thing about work can overtake us. And everything we think is a priority, everything is work priority, work priority, work priority. And then we neglect first ourselves. We stop going to the gym. We stop exercising. We stop eating well, right? That's usually the first thing to go, because we have family around us that we want to, you know, still interact with, the relationships, the friendships. So we kind of maintain those. And we have to pay the bills. So we got that mundane stuff. So really what happens is our balance is upside down. And you implied this earlier, is that when we're not taking care of ourselves, when I'm not, you know, setting my boundaries, then you don't have much energy left when things have to ramp up at work or anywhere else.
Right.
So really, this is a matter of shifting the priorities to make sure that, and it's not a selfish thing at all, to make sure that your priority number one every day, just to take care of yourself. And, you know, whether it's getting an email from David saying, I am amazing and wonderful, that helps, you know, remind you of that. We've got to take care of our mind, our body, our spiritual aspects, you know,
and our heart.
On our hearts, right? So really shifting priorities, and it doesn't mean you're not going to work, doesn't mean you're doing less at work. It just means that you're going to work as a whole present, awake, alert being, and you can do much more work and much better work in that frame of mind.
Right. Yeah, and that brings up another point, Tommy. Something that we also talk about a lot is this about individual purpose. What is my purpose in this life? Now, maybe in this moment, I don't have a clear sense of my purpose, but I know that I have to keep going and working at this job because of these other things. All right, so the question that I ask myself is, well, how is that in alignment with my purpose? And that helps me in the process of going through my list of all these things I have to do, of deciding whether something should have a higher priority or a lower priority. If it's definitely in alignment with my purpose, I want to follow that. I want to kind of make sure that that's something that I focus on. But if it's not in alignment with my purpose, then I have different criteria for deciding whether it's important or not. And, you know, going to the dentist, for example, it may not be specifically in alignment with my purpose, other than to just take care of my physical self so that I can be present in my purpose. So in a way, going to the dentist to deal with a broken tooth or something is actually, in a sense, alignment with a purpose. It's also, you know, maybe out of alignment in the sense that my tooth shouldn't have broken in the first place. Maybe that was a message from the universe inviting me to slow down. You know, all of these things are just things that we can look at and decide how we want to deal with them. And once we have a perspective on it, we can just ask these questions. Is this alignment with my purpose? Is this something I really need to do? What happens if I don't do it? What's the impact? What's the cost? And so on. And when I say cost, I'm not necessarily talking about monetary cost. I'm talking about, you know, what's it going to cost me in my life if I don't do it? So that's kind of where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah, I like it. And the aligning with purpose piece. Look, yes, everyone has a purpose. You may not have fully uncovered it yet or discovered it yet, or it's still evolving through you. But like you said, David, you still need to go to the dentist because you need this body and you need this mind. You need to be able to live on this physical planet, standing on a heating pad. You need to be able to do that with a healthy body and with a healthy mind and with a healthy heart. So
Yeah.
that definitely feeds into your purpose. And that to me is your foundation, right? This body that we're in. If we talk about what we can control and what we can't, we can control this body. And so that becomes my priority. And it doesn't mean I put all my time into it. I'm not at the gym 8 hours a day. I'm not, focused on my menu, all that. I set a time aside for it and make sure I do it. It could take 5 seconds. It could take 5 minutes. But those are my A priorities. Those are my A priorities. My B priorities are things like this. You guys, this show is on my list. It's on today. You're a B priority. But I'm here, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm free. I'm doing it because I took care of me first. And now I can share and do other things. My work, I have work I'm doing. It's my D priority list, and I'll get a lot of good work done today too. Yeah. So it's just a matter of how you put things in perspective, right?
Yep. And I just want to clarify about the whole heating pad thing. That was kind of a private joke that maybe people didn't understand. But the fact is, folks, my house is a little chilly, and I discovered that if I just stand on a heating pad while I'm doing this thing, I stay nice and cozy warm, and I don't even notice the chilliness outside. So just a little trick in case you want to try it.
So the perspective, right? So come on, I had to think. You brought it up. So just a matter of perspective, and again, do you feel the balance coming back in, right? Just a matter of what it feels like, and what does that feel like? Are you feeling out of balance? Maybe you're perfectly in balance. Maybe everything's working harmoniously. Your life is going okay, but if we're out of balance, it's probably a bit of perspective of what's important. Mm-hmm. And like you said, David, what's important to me, that's a thing to focus on here.
Yeah. And I think another little piece that might be wise to mention is, I think all of us are going in and out of balance at different points and, during our life, during our day, even moment by moment. As I'm seeking balance, it's kind of like a pendulum. A pendulum swings. It's over here on one side. It comes through the center point, which we might think of as the point of balance, and then it kind of goes to the other side. Well, we all kind of do that. We swing one way or the other. Now, of course, it's not just a two-dimensional thing. It might be in multiple dimensions, but the point that I'm trying to make is balance is there. And we may not be exactly centered in that balance place, but we know roughly when we're close to balance. We can feel it in our bodies. We can feel it in our hearts and even in our minds. We can feel it. So that's another key thing, is to start checking in with your feelings. Remember, always, always, always check in with what you're feeling. So you may have some idea or some story you're telling yourself that you're out of balance, but check in with your body. Does your body say the same thing? If your body's saying the same thing, then you've got a bit of integrity now. So you can say, well, maybe there's some truth to this story that I'm out of balance. In which case, now you can do something about it. You can start doing these lists that we talk about. You can start prioritizing. You can start eliminating things that have no relevance in your life or on your work, and just throw them away because they're pointless. They're a waste of time. And that will leave you with the things that are really important in your life. And once you've got that, well, you're already 100 steps closer to balance anyway.
So you're kind of opening the door a little bit for what we're going to talk about next week, and let's talk about that for a second. And you implied it earlier too, is that sometimes we can get busy doing things that we think are important, right? So I know people, and I've done it too in my life, where I got all this stuff to do, and I got to do it, and I got to do it, and I haven't prioritized it, and I don't know what to what end it's being done. But all this stuff's on my plate, my to-do list, and I hate my to-do list, and I jump all over the place, and I hop from one thing to another, and I do what I think is important, or is it's busy work. It's busy. There's busy stuff in there, and we can get really caught up sometimes in doing a lot of busy work and feeling really important. Mm-hmm. Wow, look at all the stuff I'm doing. Look at all the nonsense I'm handling. Look at all the, right? And we don't say that inside our head. We're thinking, this is really important stuff I'm doing. I got a lot to do today. And we do busy stuff. And it's a matter of coming to the perspective of that too. So if you feel, again, out of balance or discomfort, or you don't like to get up in the morning, this is what this is about. If you don't like to get up in the morning, some of this may be what we're doing it with our time and with our day. And again, making the list, checking it twice, trying to find out which ones are naughty and nice, and keep the nice, and maybe drop some of the stuff that isn't as beneficial, pertinent, relevant, and see what happens in your day.
Yeah. And speaking of next week, Tommy, we've invited a special guest to join us. Her name is Martina Kreiner, and she is going to be bringing to us a kind of a perspective on the stories we tell ourselves. You know, we've mentioned about how the ego mind can make up all kinds of stories and make our lives kind of miserable. Well, Martina is going to teach us a way to translate some of those stories into what she calls healing tales. And in fact, the title of our topic for next week is called Healing with Tales. So join us next week, and we're going to have a blast as always, and then we're just going to keep going.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye now.